MSNBC's Chris Hayes gave an interview to Isaac Choitner over at The New Yorker. And even though Isaac didn't get him as hard as he normally does his victims.
He does a good job.
He does usually. It seems to be he was going pretty light on him. But Chris hung himself anyway, talking about Russiagate. And so Isaac asked Chris about Russiagate, and he said, basically, is there a culture of conspiratorial thinking? And Chris admits there is absolutely a subculture of conspiratorial thinking among Democrats or the broader anti-Trump coalition. I would 100% concede that. But earlier in that interview, he absolves himself really of fostering that subculture, where he says, I don't want to lose sight of their agency that produced the state of affairs, and gives this whole long caveat in his answer about Russian government doing all these, quote, very profound and tangible effects that have produced the amount of craziness and paranoia. So what profound and tangible effect did $100,000 in Facebook ads have on the 2016 presidential
election? Well, and so basically, I mean, let's not lose sight of this is a guy who has a prime time show. He does kind of the Obama thing of like analyzing as if he's not involved, like you were part of this, right? And so he, rather than kind of owning up to that, instead he blames Russia for getting him and his colleagues to go over the top with like conspiratorial thinking about Russia, which is interesting. He does say like there is a whole variety of this person is a Russian plant within the Democratic Party. There exists, whether through these pieces of evidence I can point to or just sheer implication, some vast conspiracy. But again, there's no like, how did we foster that environment where then it gets turned on to him, where he covers Tara Reade's sexual assault allegation, and just because he does that, then he's a Russian plant. Like, this is the environment you actually fostered and helped to create.
Here's the way he phrases it. I think in some ways it was the seed that has flowered into what we're dealing with now. How did it flower, Chris? Did it maybe have something to do with having Jonathan Chait? I played this in my radar, having Jonathan Chait on your show to discuss whether Trump has been a Russian asset since 1987. Did that maybe did you pour any water into that flower that became a jungle on your network? I mean, there's not an ounce of self-reflection in this entire thing. He's like, oh, this subculture of conspiratorial thinking just exists, It's just like something we have to deal with. It's like you created this from the very beginning. And it's amazing. And this is why I think he got off scot-free in this interview. Nobody ever wants to actually challenge Democrats, people like Isaac who love to tear up Republicans. And I just think it just really demonstrates how ridiculous this sort of thinking is amongst the main purveyors of, let's call it what it is. It is fake news. This Russiagate conspiracy theory ginning up millions of people who watch that network and selling them a false bill of goods on what went wrong in 2016.
And here's the thing with Chris Hayes, who, I worked with and who I know, and a very smart guy, came out of the actual
from
left.
The nation.
I mean, and that's like, has this sort of grounding in activism and was known among those groups. And the thing with him is you can tell from this interview, and I disagree, I thought Isaac did a good job with him here because he got him to say all this stuff, but you can tell from this interview, like he has an analysis of it. He sees how it has gone off the rails, right? He sees that, he admits there is absolutely a subculture of conspiratorial thinking among Democrats or the broad anti-Trump coalition. I would 100% concede that. So like he sees it. And yet, has that changed his approach to how he covers? Has he, adjusted for that? Does he do any self-reflection about what role he may have created in fostering that? Like, I think if there's one thing we really learned in the Democratic primary, it's just how powerful freaking MSNBC turned out to be.
Immensely powerful.
The segment after segment after segment on, Russiagate and then Ukrainegate, the way that they've approached the Trump administration, the framing of it's just like this one bad guy and, ideology be damned as long as we beat this one guy. That's all we need to focus on. Like all of that, the hijacking the Never Trumpers, all of that came out of MSNBC so that when it was time to put Bernie down, they could just say, look, this is the guy, this is the one we need to beat Trump, and everyone would line up. Like it was that powerful that it happened in a week. The whole thing flipped around. And he seems to understand, in a sense, how the Democratic Party has sort of gone off the rails with this stuff. but there's no, accompanying critique of his network, his own performance, and how he fed into that. And you just, you have to think that he is smart enough to know that the way that he's chosen to conduct his show and cover it has helped to foster that environment.
And look, I want to give Isaac some credit. He is the one who gave us that glorious Malcolm Nance interview where Nance hung himself on Russiagate and, triple agents and quadruple agents.
No, Isaac seems to be a skeptic on that stuff.
Somebody really, look, I don't know this off the top of my head. Let's count how many times Malcolm Nance has been on Chris Hayes' show, right? Does Chris Hayes realize the amount of what his own role in fostering this Russians in the energy grid and all this other stuff? I just think it's terrible.
When you set your own trap, which he discovered, when Fire Chris Hayes was trending because he covered Tara Reid, is the moment, you're all cool and good as long as you're, towing the resistance line. The moment you step out of bounds, then that's it. There's no, oh, but he did a good job with this stuff. He's been, a vociferous critic of Donald Trump, which he has been. It instantly gets turned on you where, now you're the Russian plant from 1987. That's the way that this game works.
All right, tomorrow on Rising, economist Stephen Moore, a member of the President's Economic Task Force, joins us to discuss the Trump administration's response to the pandemic.
And journalist Ed Jelani is going to join us as well. Remember to subscribe so you don't miss a video. Also, like and share so others can see our show as well. We appreciate you all so much. Have a great day.